The secret, she carried a story of love, loss, and healing. Before everything unraveled, before the silence grew louder than the laughter, there was a time when I believed we were unbreakable. I used to trace the lines of her hand like they were sacred maps, learning the geography of a soul that felt like mine. We met in autumn, a quiet collision between two people who hadn't expected to find anyone, let alone someone who would change everything. I was 28, she 26. Both of us had enough bruises from the past to carry caution like a second skin, but not so much that we had given up entirely. It started as so many things do, by accident. A spilled coffee, a shared bench in a too-crowded bookstore, and a glance that lingered a beat longer than politeness allowed. There was something in her smile, subtle, lopsided, a little sad, that felt familiar. I said something awkward, she laughed anyway. And just like that, a door opened. It wasn't the kind of instant spark people write about. It was slower, like warm tea steeping. We talked about music and obscure films, about how we both hated small talk but found comfort in late night questions that stretched till dawn. I found myself rearranging my schedule just to bump into her, and I think she did the same. We never said it out loud, but our orbits aligned almost immediately. The first time I kissed her, she had just told me about her fear of being forgotten. It was raining, and we were sitting in my car, fog on the windows, and the smell of wet leaves curling around us. I told her I wouldn't forget her, not even if I tried. She smiled again, same tilt, same sadness, but this time it felt softer, like maybe she believed me. For months, it was like we had created a world of our own. Sunday mornings with vinyl records spinning in the background and pancakes burning because we were too busy dancing in the kitchen. She loved to collect things, matchboxes, ticket stubs, pressed flowers. And I think I became one of those things too, cataloged and cherished in some quiet corner of her heart. We didn't argue much back then. Maybe because we were too scared to, or maybe because we were still learning to breathe each other in. But I did notice things. How she sometimes disappeared into herself for days, retreating into silence without warning. How she avoided talking about her family, especially her sister. How she would sometimes stare at the mirror for long minutes, as if looking for something she had lost. I didn't press. I thought love meant giving space. I thought I was doing the right thing. I only learned later that space can be a dangerous thing if you don't know where the edges are. The shift was subtle, like a painting darkening over time, colors losing their vibrancy. We still went on dates, still kissed goodbye in the morning, but the words between us grew sparse. She started locking her phone, started working late more often. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, "Don't worry so much, I'm just tired." And I believed her, or wanted to. I told myself that all relationships go through lulls, that comfort often masquerades as distance. I clung to routine like it was a lifeline. I made her coffee every morning. I sent her goodnight texts when she stayed at the office late. I left notes on the fridge with doodles and tiny messages like, "You look beautiful today," hoping to pull her back, but something in her was slipping. Or maybe she had already slipped and I just hadn't noticed. Then came the anniversary. 2 years together. I made reservations at her favorite place, bought her the same perfume she wore the day we met, even found the same wine we had that night in the bookstore when we first talked about dreams. She didn't come home. I waited, staring at the flickering candle on the table, my phone cold in my hand. No message. No call. Just silence. She came in at midnight, smelling like someone else's cologne. Her eyes met mine, and in that second, everything I had been afraid to ask came rushing forward. But I didn't ask. I couldn't. I just nodded, said, "There's food in the oven," and walked into the bedroom. That night, we lay beside each other like strangers. I didn't sleep. I listened to her breathing and wondered when exactly I had lost her, or if I ever really had her at all. Days passed, then weeks. She didn't explain, and I didn't confront. We moved like ghosts, brushing past each other in the hallway, sharing meals in silence, pretending that nothing had changed. But everything had. And then, one morning, she was gone. Not just gone for work. Gone completely. Her clothes, her books, her toothbrush. All gone. A single note on the kitchen counter. "I'm sorry, I need to find myself. Please don't look for me." I read it once. Then again, and again. The words didn't change, but something inside me did. I didn't cry. I just sat on the floor, staring at the empty space where her coffee mug used to be. For hours, maybe days. Time felt irrelevant. People talk about heartbreak like a clean break, like something sharp and sudden. But this wasn't like that. It was slow, like erosion. Like something eating away at the foundation until one day it collapses, and you're left wondering how you didn't notice the cracks. I tried to function. Went to work, smiled when I needed to, told friends I was fine. But everything reminded me of her. The bookstore near our apartment. The way the sheets still smelled like her shampoo. The dog in the park that looked like the one she always wanted. I kept expecting her to walk through the door. To say it was a mistake. To say she still loved me. But she didn't. Months passed. Seasons changed. Her absence became a presence of its own, lingering in the corners of my life. I tried to move on. Went on dates that felt like interviews. Laughed at jokes that didn't touch me. I told myself I was healing, but in truth, I was surviving. Until the mirror arrived. It came in a box. No return address. Just a note. "This belonged to her. Thought you should have it." I opened it and stared at the ornate frame, its edges chipped and worn. I remembered it. It hung in our bedroom once, and she used to stare into it for long stretches, as if searching for something. I placed it against the wall, unsure what to do. That night, I looked into it, and for the first time, I saw myself. Really saw myself, not the man I was with her. Not the man I pretended to be after she left. Just me. And I realized I didn't know him. Maybe she didn't either. Maybe that's why she left. Maybe the mirror was never about finding herself. Maybe it was about realizing we were both reflections of something broken, something we couldn't fix in each other. I didn't sleep that night. I just watched the mirror, waiting for it to show me something more. And somewhere, just before dawn, I thought I saw a flicker, a beginning, or maybe just the echo of an ending that still hadn't fully come. After the mirror arrived, my days fractured. There was no clear line between reality and memory, only the haze of repetition where everything felt half-lived. I'd go to work, come back, make dinner for one, and sometimes still open the cupboard expecting to find her favorite tea, forgetting she'd taken it all with her. Or maybe I just couldn't accept that she had. I couldn't throw out her last toothbrush. I tried once, held it in my hand over the trash can, but something about the softness of the bristles, still curled slightly at the tip from the way she pressed down too hard, made my fingers freeze. I placed it back on the sink like it was sacred. The mirror became a strange anchor. Every morning I'd catch myself standing in front of it, shirt half buttoned, hair wild, trying to remember who I was before her. It was never really about vanity. It was about the moments she used to watch me from behind, her chin resting on my shoulder, both of us reflected in the glass. We'd shared so many small rituals around it. Brushing our teeth together, her stealing my moisturizer, the way she'd examine her makeup like she was painting a mask on pain. I missed her most in those in-between moments, not during birthdays or big anniversaries, but in the quiet, mundane seconds that made our life feel lived in. I kept waiting for closure, for some letter, some message, some sign, but nothing came. Not a single clue about where she went, who she was with, or whether she missed me at all. Her social media went dark. Her friends wouldn't, or couldn't, tell me anything. I started to question everything. Had I known her at all? Had she loved me, or just the version of herself she hoped to be when we were together? I didn't tell anyone about the mirror. That was mine. My own secret vigil. It became a ritual. I'd light a candle at night, sit in front of it, and stare. Not expecting anything supernatural, but hoping that by watching long enough I'd find something I missed. A moment. A truth. A fragment of her I had failed to see. One night, the mirror gave me something. A memory I didn't expect. It came suddenly, uninvited, like a whisper caught in the corner of my eye. I remembered her standing in front of it months before she left, her shoulders bare, a strange look in her eyes. Not sadness, not longing. Something else. Resignation, maybe. I asked if she was okay. She said yes, but her reflection said otherwise. That was the moment I realized now, when she had already begun to go. She was preparing, detaching, and I'd missed it. I began writing letters to her. Dozens of them. I never sent any. Just folded them, labeled them by date, and kept them in a shoebox beneath the bed. They weren't apologies or accusations. Just memories. Things I was scared would disappear if I didn't trap them in ink. Like the time we got lost driving to the coast and ended up in that tiny village with the broken lighthouse. Or the night she cried watching a rerun of a childhood cartoon because it reminded her of her father. Or the way she used to whisper, "Don't forget me," when she thought I was asleep. Writing them didn't heal me. Not in the way people say writing helps you let go. If anything, it rooted me deeper into the past. But it gave me a thread to hold on to, something to do with the H that no one else could see. I still smiled in public, still laughed at work. But at night, I unraveled. Then came Claire. I met her at a gallery opening I didn't want to attend. A friend had dragged me along, insisting I needed light, color, and people. I was about to leave when I saw her standing in front of a painting I couldn't understand. She tilted her head, sipped wine from a plastic cup, and mumbled, "Looks like a wounded sunrise." I laughed before I could stop myself. She turned. Green eyes, wind-tousled hair, and a look of quiet strength. There was no instant lightning strike, just a pause, a breath, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, something had shifted. Claire wasn't like her, not even close. She didn't hide her emotions behind smiles or escape into silence when overwhelmed. She confronted things head-on, sometimes to a fault. Where Evelyn had been soft edges and whispers, Claire was sharp lines and certainty. I was drawn to that, maybe because I needed something solid, something I couldn't lose in the fog of doubt. We started slowly. Coffee, walks, long talks in the park. I didn't tell her about Evelyn at first. I couldn't. It felt unfair, like inviting someone into a house still haunted by the last tenant. But Claire wasn't naive. She saw the shadows. "You still love someone else," she said one night, her voice quiet but unwavering. "I know. But I also think you're trying." I didn't deny it. Couldn't. Instead, I took her hand and told her about the mirror, about the letters, about the note on the counter that ended everything. Claire didn't flinch. She listened. Really listened. And then she said something that cracked me open. "Maybe you need to stop asking why she left and start asking why you stayed, even when you felt her slipping." That question haunted me for weeks. Why did I stay? Why didn't I fight harder? Why did I accept crumbs when I once had the whole feast? Maybe because I thought that's what love required. Sacrifice, patience, endurance. But Claire was right. Love isn't just about staying. Sometimes it's about knowing when to let go, when to demand more, when to say, "This isn't enough." Claire and I grew closer, not in the all-consuming way I had known before. Ours was gentler, more grounded. She never tried to replace Evelyn, never asked me to forget. She simply stood beside me as I sorted through the wreckage. And in doing so, she became part of the reconstruction. I eventually moved the mirror into storage. It wasn't sudden. One morning I walked past it and didn't stop. The next day, I didn't glance at it at all. A week later, it felt like just another object. That's when I knew. It was time. Claire helped me carry it down. We wrapped it in blankets, taped the edges, placed it gently in the back of her car. As she shut the trunk, she asked, "Do you feel lighter?" I nodded. But the truth was more complicated. I didn't feel lighter. I felt clearer. Like fog lifting after a long storm, revealing a road I hadn't seen before. I stopped writing letters after that. I didn't need them anymore. The memories still lived in me, but they no longer dictated the rhythm of my days. I started doing things I'd put off for years. Took a trip by myself. Started painting again. reconnected with old friends. Not because I was over her, but because I was remembering who I was before and who I wanted to be now. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, a letter arrived. No name, no return address, just my name, written in familiar cursive. Inside was a single page. I saw you in a dream. You looked happy. I hope it wasn't just a dream. There was no signature, no explanation, just that. I sat on the edge of the bed, the letter trembling in my hand. Claire walked in, saw my face, and sat beside me. I handed it to her without speaking. She read it, looked at me, and said, "You don't have to respond. You don't owe her anything." But that wasn't true. I did owe Evelyn something. Not revenge, not closure, not gratitude. For loving me the best she could. For leaving when she knew she couldn't anymore. And for sending the mirror. Because that mirror didn't just reflect her absence. It reflected my own, and through it, I found my way back. That night, I burned the letter, not out of anger, out of peace. Claire and I lay on the couch, wrapped in silence, watching the flames flicker behind the glass. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel haunted. I felt home. Time has a strange way of dulling sharp edges, not by erasing them, but by wrapping them in layers of quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand answers, only acceptance. In the months that followed the burning of Evelyn's letter, life unfolded not dramatically, but deliberately. My routines regained rhythm, no longer dictated by absence, no longer haunted by what-ifs. Claire and I built something steady, not grand or cinematic, but honest. And in that quiet honesty, I began to understand something I never grasped in the turbulence of my past. Real love doesn't demand spectacle. It asks only for presence. We moved into a new place together, a modest apartment with creaky floors and too much light in the mornings. Claire painted the walls soft colors. Sage in the bedroom, a dusty rose in the hallway. I built bookshelves, even though we owned more plants than books. We picked out new dishes, hung up mismatched frames, argued over throw pillows. None of it was perfect, and none of it needed to be. It felt lived, in before the boxes were even unpacked. There were no ghosts in this home, only possibilities. Still, there were moments when the past returned, not violently, but like a half-forgotten scent carried on a breeze. Once, while organizing the closet, I stumbled across a scarf Evelyn had given me, tucked deep inside a coat I hadn't worn in years. My breath caught. I held it for a long moment before setting it gently in a box marked "Donut." Claire saw the look on my face but said nothing. She knew. She always knew when not to ask. We didn't talk about Evelyn much. Not because it was forbidden, but because we didn't need to. Claire understood that grief, even quiet grief, doesn't go away. It just changes shape. And sometimes, when we were lying in bed, she'd trace the outline of my arm or the slope of my chest and whisper things that didn't need replies. "I see you," she said once, in the dark. Even the parts that still ache. One rainy afternoon, we visited an antique shop in the old part of town. Claire loved rummaging through old things, trying to imagine the lives they once belonged to. I watched her from across the room, her fingers brushing over chipped teacups and brass keys, eyes scanning for something with a story. I wandered into a corner, and that's when I saw it, a mirror. Not the mirror, but nearly identical. Ornate frame, slightly tarnished silver, the kind of piece meant to outlast generations. I froze. The shopkeeper noticed. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. Came from an estate in the countryside. The owner said it used to hang in her daughter's room. I smiled politely and nodded, but inside, something coiled. I didn't buy it. I didn't even touch it. I just stared at it for a while before walking away. That night, I dreamed of Evelyn for the first time in over a year. In the dream, she was standing on a bridge, hair blowing in the wind, face turned away. When I called her name, she looked back, but her face was blurry, unreadable. She said nothing. Just raised her hand in a silent goodbye. I woke up with tears on my cheeks. Claire found me in the kitchen, staring into my coffee. "Was it her?" she asked softly. I nodded. She didn't ask more. Just kissed the back of my neck and poured herself a mug. That's what life with Claire was. Quiet understanding, patient space. A love that didn't ask to replace the past, only to walk alongside it. The following weekend, we attended a friend's engagement party. The kind of event filled with laughter, champagne, and carefully curated stories about love and destiny. Claire looked radiant, wearing the blue dress I loved, her hair pinned loosely, smile easy. As we mingled with strangers and clinked glasses, I found myself looking at her like I did in the beginning. Not through the lens of who I had been, but who we were becoming. Later that evening, while driving home, she asked, "Do you ever think about what you'd say to her if she showed up again?" It was a question I hadn't let myself consider. Not in any real way. I used to, I admitted. I imagined confrontations, breakdowns, long monologues filled with all the things I never got to say. But now, I paused. Now, I think I'd just ask if she's okay. Claire nodded. That's enough, I think. And it was. But life isn't always that generous. 2 weeks later, I received an email. Subject, Evelyn, no greeting, no sign-off, just 3 lines. I heard about your new life. I'm glad you're happy, but I need to see you. Just once, please. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours. My hands trembled, not with anger or longing, but with something more complex. Confusion, guilt, curiosity. I didn't reply. I couldn't. I told myself I needed time, that I owed it to Claire to think. But truthfully, I was afraid. Afraid of what seeing Evelyn might stir. Afraid that the person I had worked so hard to rebuild might fracture again. I didn't tell Claire. Not right away. That was the first time I kept something from her, and it sat in my chest like a stone. Days passed. Another email came, shorter this time, tomorrow. 5 p.m., park bench under the old oak tree. It was a place I remembered. Our place. A quiet corner of the city park where we'd once spent an entire afternoon reading poetry aloud, drunk on cheap wine and sun. The memory was so specific it hurt. I told Claire that night. Her face didn't change, not at first, but her eyes dimmed just slightly. Do you want to go? I don't know, I said truthfully. I feel like I have to. She nodded, then stood and walked to the window. I watched her back rise and fall with her breathing. When she turned around, there were no tears, just resolve. Send go. But know this, if you're still holding on to something with her, I deserve to know. I wanted to promise her that I wasn't. But I didn't. Because deep down, I wasn't sure. The next day, I sat on that bench, hands stuffed into my pockets, heart pounding. I felt like a teenager again, waiting for something that might never come. And then she appeared. Evelyn. Same posture, same walk, but thinner, paler. Her hair was shorter now, her eyes tired, still beautiful, but changed in the way people change after surviving something they don't speak about. She sat beside me, not too close. I didn't think you'd come, she said. Wasn't sure I would. Silence. Then, I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I didn't know how to love myself without destroying everything around me. I didn't respond. I let her speak. I was drowning, and I couldn't take you down with me. I thought disappearing was mercy. I turned to her. It wasn't. It was abandonment. She nodded. I know that now. We sat in silence again. The wind rustled the leaves. Somewhere, a child laughed. The world moved on, as it always does. I'm not here to reclaim anything, she said. I just needed to see for myself that you were okay, that you made it out. I looked at her and said the only thing I hadn't been able to before. I did. But not alone. She smiled then. A small, broken thing. I'm glad. And then she stood. Goodbye, she said. This time, I knew it was real. I watched her walk away, a solitary figure disappearing into a crowd of strangers. I didn't follow. I didn't look back. When I got home, Claire was waiting on the couch, blanket around her legs, a half-empty glass of wine beside her. I walked in and didn't say a word, just sat beside her and placed my head in her lap. She ran her fingers through my hair and whispered, "Did you get what you needed?" I nodded. And just like that, the chapter closed. Not with a bang, not with fireworks or fury, but with softness, with peace. But something else waited just beyond that moment. Something I hadn't yet seen. And it was coming. Some stories end cleanly, with a door shutting, a letter burned, a final goodbye whispered on a park bench. But real life doesn't honor such neat endings. It meanders, folds back into itself, resurrects what should have stayed buried. After I saw Evelyn that day, after she turned and disappeared into the soft hush of the city crowd, I believed I had closed the door for good, not just on her, but on the entire chapter of us. I told myself the H was gone, the questions answered, the longing dissolved. And maybe that was true for a while. Maybe I was naive enough to think that closure was a destination rather than a revolving door. Because what followed wasn't silence. It was echo. It started subtly. A recurring dream, her standing in a house I didn't recognize, holding a child I'd never met. Always the same dream, always the same child, dark curls. Evelyn's green eyes reaching toward me without speaking. I would wake up breathless, heart pounding, drenched in sweat and confusion. At first, I chalked it up to memory residue. But the dreams grew more vivid, more detailed. The furniture in the house became familiar, the paintings on the walls consistent. It was like my subconscious was building something it wanted me to see. Something I wasn't ready to face. Claire noticed. She didn't push, but I saw the way her eyes lingered on me longer in the mornings, how her questions grew softer, loaded with a concern she didn't want to burden me with. Bed dreams again, she asked once, her hand resting gently on my chest. I nodded. I didn't elaborate. I didn't have the words. And deep down, I was scared of what those dreams meant, because they didn't feel like dreams, they felt like warnings. Then came the message. A plain envelope tucked under our apartment door, no stamp, no name. Inside, a single photograph. Evelyn standing next to a small boy. He looked to be 4 or 5. Her arm was wrapped protectively around him, and the boy. He had my eyes. That unmistakable shade of gray-blue, the one my mother used to say looked like storms trapped behind glass. The kind of eyes you don't forget. I stared at the photo for hours. Every minute chipped away at the wall I had so carefully rebuilt. I was shaking when Claire came home. She found me on the floor, the photo clenched in my hand like a lifeline unraveling. She sat beside me, her fingers brushing mine. "Is it hers?" she asked. I nodded. "I think he's mine." The weight of those words dropped like lead between us. Claire didn't cry. She didn't yell. She stood up, walked into the other room, and didn't come out for a long time. When she did, she sat down beside me again and said something that felt both like a promise and a surrender. "Whatever you decide, don't lie to yourself about what this means." That night, I barely slept. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photo under the dim light, trying to breathe through the 1,000 thoughts spiraling in my head. Why hadn't she told me? Why now? Was the child really mine? Or was this some twisted fragment of unfinished business sent to ruin what I'd built with Claire? I wanted to believe in coincidence, but the precision of the delivery, no return address, no note, spoke of intent. Evelyn wanted me to see. She wanted me to know. I couldn't stay still. At dawn, I drove to the park where we had last spoken. I sat on that same bench, heart pounding, waiting without knowing what for. She didn't come. No Evelyn, no child. Just me and the morning fog curling like smoke around my legs. The next day I went looking. Not for her directly. That would have felt like crossing a line I wasn't ready for. But I still had connections, mutual acquaintances, fragments of her old world I could pull threads from. One thread led to another. A friend of a friend, a vague address. And then, finally, a confirmation. She was living in a small town 2 hours away under a different last name. Working as an art teacher at a local center. Raising a son named Jude. Jude. The name hit like thunder. It was a name we had once jokingly argued about late one night, years ago, lying in bed tangled in sheets and hypotheticals. I had said it sounded too poetic. She had said it sounded like hope. Hope? I told Claire everything, every detail, every ugly, atching truth. She listened, and then she said the one thing I feared most. "You need to see him?" I didn't argue. I didn't promise. but deep down I knew she was right. So one cloudy Saturday, I drove to that town. I parked outside the community center. Heart racing, hands slick against the steering wheel. I sat there, watching people come and go. And then she appeared. Evelyn, hair tied back, wearing paint-stained jeans, holding the hand of a boy who looked exactly like every answer I didn't know I needed. I didn't approach. I watched. He was laughing, tugging at her hand, running in short bursts like his legs couldn't keep up with his joy. She looked tired, but content. A different kind of happiness than the one I remembered. Softer, quieter, earned. It took me 3 weeks to gather the courage to write. My letter wasn't angry. It wasn't demanding. It was simple. I saw him. I don't need explanations. I just want to know him, if you'll let me. Her reply came 2 days later. He asks about his father every night. I always told him you were far away, not gone. He deserves the truth. Come on Sunday, 3 p.m. Don't be late, but I was early. My hands trembled as I stood on her porch, every cell in my body screaming. She opened the door, and for a moment, we were frozen there. No anger, no apologies, just the weight of what had been and what was to come. Then, from behind her, a small voice. Is that him? I looked past her, and there he was, Jude. Eyes wide, expression curious, cautious. He clutched a small toy robot in one hand, and something in my chest shattered and reassembled all at once. I knelt. I said. I'm a friend of your mom's. He stared, then nodded. You look like me. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Evelyn stepped aside. Come in, she said. We've got a lot to figure out. But inside, the house was warm. Toys scattered, crayons on the table, the smell of cookies in the air. Domestic life in full motion. It felt foreign and familiar all at once. We talked. For hours. Evelyn and I sat at the kitchen table while Jude played nearby. She told me everything. How she found out she was pregnant after she left, how she wanted to come back but was too ashamed, how she tried to raise him without looking back but always knew one day this moment would come. I didn't judge. I listened. When I left that night, Jude hugged me without being asked. Will you come back, he asked. I looked at Evelyn. She gave a small nod. I will, I said. I promise. That night, I stood outside Claire's door, the photo still in my jacket pocket, my mind spinning. She opened the door, saw my face, and stepped back without a word. I met him, I said. He's incredible. Claire smiled. Of course he is. He's yours. I broke down. For the first time in years, I let myself fall apart completely. And she held me, strong and steady. This changes things, I whispered. I know, she replied. But not everything. And it didn't. But it changed enough. The mirror between us wasn't just between Evelyn and me anymore. It was between who I had been, who I was now, and who I needed to become. For Jude, for Claire, and for myself. And for the first time, I was ready to face the reflection. Fatherhood, I soon discovered, isn't something that begins the moment you hold a child. It begins in the choices you make before you ever say the word dad. It begins in the late-night doubts, in the trembling questions you ask yourself when no one else can hear. Am I ready? Do I deserve this? Will I break what I'm trying so desperately to hold? And yet, despite the weight of those questions, the first time Jude reached for my hand without being prompted, the doubts softened. Not because they vanished, but because they found a new companion, purpose. Sunday visits became routine, sometimes at Evelyn's place, other times at the park, or wandering bookstores where Jude would sit cross-legged on the floor and lose himself in colorful pages of dinosaurs, spaceships, or imaginary worlds I had once escaped into as a boy. I saw myself in him constantly. His curiosity, his stubbornness, even the way he scrunched his nose when concentrating. There were awkward moments, of course. Times when he called me by my name and not Dad, or asked Evelyn questions she wasn't sure how to answer. But he never once asked why I hadn't been there. I think, in his young way, he understood the space in between people, how life could keep good intentions apart. Claire, through it all, remained steady, supportive, honest. She never tried to involve herself in decisions about Jude unless I asked. She didn't hover, but she listened when I needed to talk, encouraged me when I doubted myself, and reminded me that I was allowed to stumble. One evening, after I'd come back from spending the afternoon with Jude, she handed me a drawing he'd made. Me, him, and her, all holding hands with giant, messy hearts floating above our heads. I hadn't realized he'd seen a photo of Claire, let alone considered her part of his life already. But there we were, a sketched in crayon permanence. I showed her, not knowing how she'd react. She took the picture, studied it, then smiled in that quiet way she had when something touched her deeper than she let on. "He sees what matters," she said. "That's enough." It wasn't easy, a blending past and present. Evelyn and I kept boundaries clear. We were co-parents now, not something else. We talked logistics, school options, pediatricians, shared custody calendars. Every now and then, though, something in her voice hinted at regret, at memories tucked too tightly to unravel. But I never went looking. That door had closed. Not with anger, but with clarity. Still, the past has a way of resurfacing in the unlikeliest of moments. One day, Jude came running to me, clutching a photograph in his tiny hands. It was old, faded, corners worn. It showed Evelyn, younger, pregnant, standing in front of the mirror I once kept beside my bed. Her hand was on her belly, and her expression was unreadable. Not joy, not fear, something between. Jude asked if I took the picture. I shook my head. "Who did?" he asked. I didn't know. And when I asked Evelyn later, she hesitated before answering. "My sister," she finally said. "She was with me when I found out. I stayed with her for a while before I moved here." I hadn't known. I'd never even met her sister. Evelyn had always avoided the topic. Something in that silence made me uneasy. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked gently. "Because I didn't think it mattered anymore," she said. "I didn't think any of it would catch up to me." That phrasing stuck with me. Catch up to me, like there was something chasing her. Something unresolved. The following week, Jude fell ill. Nothing severe, just a fever and cough, but enough to send Evelyn into a spiral of anxiety. I stayed with them, helped her with meds, ran to the store at 2 a.m. for a specific brand of children's syrup she insisted on. In those sleepless hours, between cool cloths and whispered reassurances, something shifted in the air, not between Evelyn and me, but inside her. I caught her staring at me once, not with longing, but with fear. "What is it?" I asked. She shook her head. "He's everything," she said. "And I'm afraid I'll ruin him." "You're not going to ruin him. You don't know that. You're doing your best. And if my best isn't enough." "It is." We didn't speak after that for a while, just listened to Jude breathing as he drifted to sleep. But a crack had opened, and over the next few weeks it widened. Evelyn became withdrawn, not in the way she once was, quiet and distant, but distracted. She forgot appointments, missed calls, seemed lost, even in familiar routines. One afternoon, Jude told me she'd been crying in the bathroom for a long time. I didn't confront her right away. I watched, waited, until the signs became too loud to ignore. One evening, I found her sitting on the porch, cigarette in hand, something she hadn't touched since we were in our 20s. Her eyes were hollow, her expression vacant. "What's going on?" I asked. She didn't answer, just took a drag and exhaled slowly like it was her first breath in hours. "Evelyn, I'm not okay." That's all she said, 3 words. Raw, unvarnished. I sat beside her. "Is it depression?" I asked carefully. She shook her head. "It's guilt, and it's back." And then she told me the truth. The real truth. The one she had buried so deeply she thought it would never surface. After she left me, after she discovered she was pregnant, she hadn't immediately planned to keep the baby. In fact, she'd scheduled an appointment to terminate. It wasn't until the night before that she changed her mind, because her sister had found the ultrasound photo in her bag and confronted her. They'd fought, screamed. Her sister told her she was making the same mistakes their mother had, running from love, hiding behind fear. Evelyn said something cruel in return, words she never wanted to repeat. And then the next morning, before she could apologize, her sister was gone. A car crash? Head on. Instant. Evelyn never got the chance to make things right. And in that guilt, that trauma, she saw Jude not only as a miracle, but as a burden she had no right to raise alone. That's why she'd sent the photo. That's why she'd let me find them. Because she wasn't sure how much longer she could do it by herself. "I don't want to disappear again," she whispered. "But some days, I wake up and think it might be better if I did." I sat there, stunned, heart cracked wide open. "You don't have to do this alone," I said. "Not anymore?" "Not ever," she nodded. And for the first time in years, she wept. Not silently, not stokily, but openly, desperately. The kind of crying that comes when the dam finally breaks. The next day, I called Claire. I told her everything, every broken piece. And she didn't hesitate. She came. She hugged Evelyn. She made tea. She helped clean the kitchen. She played with Jude. She didn't ask for explanations or gratitude. She simply showed up. Because that's who she was. That's who we were now. And in that living room, with the smell of burnt toast and children's laughter echoing off the walls, I saw something I hadn't dared to imagine, a life rebuilt not from the ashes of old love, but from the soil of something deeper, something real, not perfect, but whole. And yet, in the back of my mind, a question stirred. Not about Evelyn, not about Claire, but about the mirror, the original one, the one I'd locked away in storage. Because recently I'd started dreaming about it again. And this time I wasn't the one standing in front of it. Jude was. It was supposed to be over. The past acknowledged, truths confessed, pain made bearable through honesty and time. We had reached a kind of equilibrium, that fragile harmony where the ghosts no longer rattle the walls, only murmur from the distance. But nothing stays quiet forever. Not when a mirror still waits in the dark. The dreams came again, sharper now. Jude standing alone before the old mirror, fingers brushing its surface like he recognized it, like it called to him. He would turn around in the dream and speak, but no sound came out, only movement of lips I could never decode. Behind him, a flicker, light or shadow, I couldn't tell. And always, I woke up with a sense of wrongness that stayed in my chest like an echo. I never told Evelyn. I didn't want to unnerve her. Claire knew, of course. She always knew when my sleep turned fitful, when I spent mornings staring into coffee instead of speaking. "It's not over, is it?" she asked one morning, and I could only shake my head. "It never really is," she added, then kissed my temple and left for work, leaving me with that old ache I thought I'd buried. That day, I did something I'd avoided for years. I drove to the storage unit and unlocked the door. Dust thick in the air, boxes piled high, forgotten things wrapped in old blankets. And there, propped in the back like a sleeping secret, was the mirror. I pulled the covering off slowly, as if afraid it might wake. Its frame was more tarnished than I remembered, the glass clouded slightly with time, but the shape of it still struck something in me. It didn't reflect the unit behind me. It reflected the apartment. The old one Evelyn and I had shared. The beige walls, the crooked painting, the cracked window that used to whistle when the wind hit just right. I stumbled backward, blinked, looked again. Now it showed only my face, pale and breathless. But I knew what I'd seen. I loaded the mirror into the car, why, unsure what I intended to do with it. It felt reckless. But more than that, it felt necessary. I brought it home. Claire was silent when she saw it leaning against the wall in our hallway. "I don't understand," she said, not angry, just bewildered. "I thought we left that part behind." "So did I said. "But it keeps coming back. Jude keeps dreaming about it too. I haven't told Evelyn. I'm scared it's more than just my own mind playing tricks." Claire stared at it. "It's just a mirror." "Maybe," I said. "But maybe it's a window." I didn't hang it. I left it against the wall, untouched. But Jude noticed it the moment he walked in that weekend. He froze. His fingers tightened around the toy in his hand. a small action figure he never let go of. "That's the mirror from my dreams," he said. My throat went dry. "What happens in your dreams?" I asked. He didn't answer at first, just stepped closer, still not touching it. "A girl stands behind me. She looks like Mommy, but not really. She's sad. She tries to talk, but her mouth doesn't move. I think she's lost." "Lost where?" I whispered. He pointed at the mirror. "In there." That night, after Jude fell asleep, I told Evelyn everything. Her face went white. "I've had the same dreams," she whispered. "For years. I thought they were just grief. My sister, she looked like me. We were often mistaken for twins. She was the one taking the picture before she died. I didn't tell you everything that day. There's something I never said out loud because it sounds insane." I waited. She took a deep breath. She was obsessed with mirrors. Said they were more than glass. Said they remembered things. The day before the crash, she stood in front of that mirror for hours. I thought she was being dramatic, working through our fight. But she said something strange. "If I die tomorrow, this mirror will still know me." Silence. Then, I think part of her is still there. I should have dismissed it. Should have said it was grief manifesting in dreams, in shared trauma, in coincidence. But I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. Not after what Jude saw. So we decided, against reason, against logic, to confront it. One evening, after Jude was asleep and Claire had gently, wordlessly removed herself from the apartment to give us space she didn't understand, but still honored, Evelyn and I sat in front of the mirror again, just like we had in the earliest days. Only now, we were different, and so was it. We lit a candle, placed the photo of Evelyn and her sister nearby. We didn't perform a ritual. We didn't say incantations. We just stared into it, like we had so many times before, like we were waiting for it to blink. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the glass began to ripple. Not visibly. No warping, no shimmer. But emotionally, the air around us grew colder. The reflection began to drift, almost imperceptibly. My hair slightly out of sync. Evelyn's eyes blinking when she wasn't. Then, a third figure appeared. A silhouette, soft, gentle, female. She stood behind us in the reflection only. I turned. Nothing. But in the glass, she remained. Her hands moved. No sound. Just gesture. Over and over again. The same motion. Evelyn gasped. "That's the way she signed to forgive me when we were kids." We made up our own signs. I reached out. Not to the glass, but to Evelyn. "She's asking to be let go." Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never forgave her. I blamed her for dying angry. I blamed her for everything. The figure tilted her head, smiled barely, then began to fade. The mirror returned to normal. The reflection sensed. The air warmed, and Evelyn collapsed into my arms, sobbing like she had the night Jude fell sick. After that night, the dreams stopped. For her, for Jude. Even for me, the mirror no longer showed things it shouldn't. It became what it had always pretended to be. Just glass and wood. Memory finally laid to rest. We didn't keep it. Evelyn asked to take it, not to hang to bury. She took it to her sister's grave, laid it down carefully, then covered it with earth. A strange kind of funeral. A stranger kind of peace. Claire and I moved a few months later. A new home, fresh walls, sunlight in every corner. Jude visited often. We read, we built Lugio towers. We learned how to braid hair on dolls and how to tie shoelaces properly. He called me Dad now. Naturally. Without hesitation, he called Claire Sisha, which made her smile every time. Evelyn began seeing someone new, a kind man, not a replacement, but someone who made her laugh again. Life went on, not untouched, but healed. One evening, as Jude fell asleep on the couch, his head resting on my lap, Claire turned to me and asked, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Evelyn had stayed?" I nodded. Sometimes. But I think we both would have broken. Eventually, we were mirrors for each other. And mirrors only reflect, they don't build. She smiled. "And what are we?" "We're windows," I said. "Will we let light in?" But she leaned in and kissed me. And there it was. No reflection, no ghost, no echo. Just us, and the boy who dreamed of mirrors. now sleeping peacefully in a home built not on memory, but on love. The mirror was gone. But what it taught us remained. Not all wounds close cleanly, but some with time, light, and truth learn to carry beauty in their scars. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.